Assalamu-Alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our live. Good morning to everyone. So we're just going to wait here on everyone to join, and we have Wendy Diaz here. Um, Assalamu-Alaikum to everyone. Let's see how I can have Wendy Diaz join us here. It's the first time I do with the collaboration. I think. Oh, assalamualaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Can you
Yeah,
hear
I
me?
can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mashallah. Thank you for joining. Thank you for doing this with me.
No problem.
Mashallah.
Well, I'm sure this is your first time doing it. I feel special.
Yeah, I don't know how. I was just I've done a live before, and I'm usually really shy, so like I'm trying to put out myself out there, and it's just nice to get to see, like, to experience this with you for my first time. The whole troubleshooting. Thank you.
It's an honor and privilege to be here
Oh,
with
it's a
you.
privilege for me. Like, I'm so, like, shy already to, like, have you next to me and, like, talking to you. So thank you, mashallah.
Assalamu alaikum to everybody that's out
Yes.
there.
Drop a heart, guys, if you guys already had, like, your breakfast and your coffee and your tea. If you guys woke up early, if you guys already did like, eat already. So I'm not dropping a heart yet. I still haven't had, like, a tea or my breakfast yet. It looks like it got cut, like, there. Looked like it got paused. Let's see. Wendy, you went out. It looked like it, but she's coming back in. I'm waving to everyone that's here this morning. Okay. Wendy, it looked like you got out and then something happened, right?
I just got kicked out. I don't know why.
Oh, I think it might have been my Wi-Fi. So I turned off my Wi-Fi and just went on cellular mode.
Okay.
I
Oh,
was just telling everyone that's here, like, drop a heart if you ate already breakfast, if you had your morning tea, morning coffee. I said I'm not dropping it right now because I still haven't ate my breakfast, but I hope everyone here, like, has already, ate their breakfast or have something in their stomach, and we'll start soon. Did you eat something already, Wendy?
no, not yet. No. And I
Yeah.
have full disclaimer. I live in Maryland, and this is full-blown allergy season. So my nose is red, and I might be reaching for tissues during this time. So just bear with me, okay?
Don't worry. Okay, I guess we can start, and everyone can see this later on too. Um, Again, thank you so much, Wendy, for doing this with me. And I wanted to see if today, if we could talk about the need for representations of Latinos in Muslim writing. A little bit about myself, for those that don't know. Um, I'm a Muslim reader for 5 years. Alhamdulillah, I converted in 2019, and time is flying by, and it's just like, oh, like that 5 years went by. So I'm also a stay-at-home mom. I have two children. I just had the newborn. So I'm also, like, disclaimer, like, if my eyes look tired and stuff like that, I apologize, but alhamdulillah, it's such a blessing to experience motherhood again. um I also love anything with that is regarding in science or like biology, chemistry. I love talking about that. Anything in regards to like medicine, I love like also languages are my passion. Something about me is that like I'm a nurse, but I don't really work that much. But when I do, I work with the older population and in Alzheimer units. So I love what I do. Um, and I'm also an upcoming author this summer. Inshallah, I can't wait to share my book with all of you guys. And I'll let you guys know a little bit about the book later, but I wanted to now have this space for Wendy Diaz to introduce herself and tell us about the wonderful, lovely person that you are.
Well, welcome again to everybody. And my name is Wendy Diaz. I converted to Islam about 24 years ago, about in 2000 actually. So, and I started writing books for children in 2009 because after I had my first son, I realized that there weren't any books for Latino families or Spanish-speaking families, and both my husband and I are converts, and he's Ecuadorian, I'm Puerto Rican. So we wanted to preserve our language and preserve our culture at home. And so I started to produce these books under the banner of Hablamos Islam, which is an organization that we had started in 2005 to basically fill the gaps with Spanish Dawah, creating resources and translating already produced material from organizations like Why Islam and ICNA and things like that, or even other websites like khutbah.com. That's a really old one. So basically, we were translating things into Spanish, and then once we had our son, we wanted to create children's books in Spanish or bilingual English and Spanish, and that's what I've been doing for the past, I think it's like 15 years now. Alhamdulillah. So I got a few books here. I have some of my books, um, and that's basically about me. And we can talk more about the books and why they're important, as we continue the conversation. And I wanted to ask you, I don't think I caught what country your family's from or where you from.
Oh, good. Yeah. So my family comes from Mexico. So we're from there's different states. Like my parents come from, my dad's side of the family comes from Oaxaca. It's like on the lower side of Mexico. And then my mom's side comes from Guanajuato. It's more up in like the upper side, but they met in the city. So when we travel, we always go like to mainly to the city of Mexico and we stay there, and then we also go to Oaxaca and Guanajuato. So it's nice. It's nice where and in the book too that I write about, it'll touch about one of the character is from like Oaxaca. So it's like really nice to put where I'm from into the book that it's coming out. So thank you. Yeah, for
Awesome.
sure. But thanks for sharing. Like, I also brought a book with me today. It's your book too. Yeah, so it's one of my favorites that I read to my daughter. Oh, look at that. So I love this book. Everyone, if you guys have toddlers like mine, she loves all the pictures. Especially she likes Ahmed because she thinks he's so cute, and she starts laughing at him because the way he looks and smiles. So it's a nice book, everyone. Just doing it's you can follow him and it says like his whole day on Friday what he does. So mashallah, such a beautiful book. But yes, I wanted to talk about too how there was that's why I wanted to write a book for children. And I also saw like Wendy. I also saw like the lack of Spanish books in like the Muslim bookstores and stuff like that. There's mashallah, there's so many books right now that are coming out, and like they're touching beautiful topics, and I just like love to read them with my daughter. But I also thought about like how about like just having them being represented in a book would make them even more like more proud, and just like how we are more proud of ourselves, or just like see a big win when we see like medical doctors being represented, like seeing more Spanish speaking healthcare workers, or like just in the educational system, more people, like a lot, shout out to all the graduates right now that are like graduating. Like we get so proud, like the Latino community, a big, it's a win from that someone wins, it's like a big win for all of us. So alhamdulillah, it's just I wanted to see that in the books, and that's why I wanted to create that book that is coming out. So just we need that that representation. And I know that you talked about like the what made you like start writing a book too, because you saw the lack. Did you wanted to touch a little bit more on the lack of representation of Muslim writing with Latinos in books or literature?
Yeah, so I started this. My son was born in 2006. So imagine from that time, I'm trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to teach my son about Islam? This is for converts, especially when you have your first child. It's a wake up call because now you have to raise a born Muslim, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because your
Yeah.
children are coming into this religion from, as you know, from childhood. So you have to make sure you instill those values and instill those lessons in them early. And if we wanted to preserve our language, then we had to find resources that were suitable for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we started this search, and we were looking for books about Islam in Spanish for children. And I'm telling you, we found zero. And so think back, this was way back, right? And there was nothing that we could find here in the U.S. So we reached out to people outside of the U.S. to ask them if they had anything. We got in contact with brothers and sisters in Spain, and they told us that they didn't have any children's books in Spanish.
Wow.
And we were mind blown. Okay, so then we contacted someone in Ecuador, my husband's country,
Mm-hmm.
and there we spoke with Sheikh Yahya Suquillo, who is the imam at Masjid As-Salam in Quito. And he was the one that was able to send us two small books. One of them was on wudu, and the other one was on the Prophet ﷺ, and that book was produced actually in Egypt. He sent us those copies. Those were the only two Spanish books that we had about Islam. And then we also, I traveled to Puerto Rico, where I'm from. I went to the masjid, and there was literally a class going on for mothers and children, and the imam was teaching in English.
Wow.
And in Puerto Rico, everyone speaks Spanish. So I couldn't even understand, why are they teaching in English when the majority of the people sitting here, they don't even speak English. So so we realized that this was a huge problem. And the next step was contacting Islamic children's book publishers and asking them, can we translate your books into Spanish? So this took, some time. I started contacting different ones, and I would buy books for my son in English, and I would translate them
I
as
did
I
that.
read them to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so I would look at the publishing company, and then I would send them an email, and I said, I'm willing to translate this book for you. I will do it for free. The only thing I ask is for maybe one copy that I can have for my children. And I either didn't get a response, or second, I got a response, and the response was, there is no market for Spanish Islamic books. So there's no point in us producing it, because we're not going to see a financial return. So at this point, I was already a writer. I liked writing and translating as well. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to do this myself, with the help of my family, my husband. And so I started writing, And then what happened, the first book I wrote, and I have it here, I showed it to some of my friends who are also Latino Muslims, and they said, we need that too. Why don't One of my friends said, why don't you do it? The first one was actually just in Spanish, and she said, why don't you do it bilingual in English and Spanish, and then we can, it'll be easier to distribute in the US and things like that. So this is Un Velo y una Barba, and this book is about why does the mom wear hijab, and why does the dad have a beard? So it's kind of explaining to the child the reasons why, right? And this was the very first book that we made, and this is a reprint. It didn't look like this before. This right here, it says, I think it was at the 10th year anniversary edition. So I think we published this edition in 2019, because it's 2009 is when we wrote it. So that's what I've been doing. I've been trying to produce books, and I would think, what is missing? We don't have one about Ramadan. I had to write one about Ramadan. We don't have one about the prophets, to start writing about Prophet Suleiman, Prophet Yunus, just things like that. And eventually, my kids are growing up during this time. Mm-hmm. And what I started seeing is that some of them, they were going to Islamic school, and in the Islamic school, the other children had never seen another Latino Muslim. And that kind of set off light bulbs. It's not just about creating resources in Spanish or bilingual for Latino families. It's also about Latino Muslim representation, right? Exactly. We have to see ourselves in Islamic children's literature. And that's where the idea came about, of creating also books that have Latino Muslim characters in them, so that other children can be exposed to what is a Latino Muslim. How many, we don't all come from the same country, right? We don't all speak Spanish. We don't all, eat tacos, right? So it's like, we have to, unfortunately, the Muslim community as Latinos, I think we kind of blend in, and people don't really know where we're from. Like I can look at you and say, you look Indonesian. So maybe nobody would ever come to you and ask you, right? Where are you from?
Yeah.
And for myself, like when I tell people where I'm from, they'll be like, oh, I thought you were Egyptian, or I thought you were Moroccan, or something like this. So we tend to blend in. And so we don't, we just don't stand out, and we're not able to tell our stories. And that's important, to be able to tell our stories.
Right. I could totally resonate with everything that you mentioned, from like the translating the books. As I read these beautiful written books too, I often go and we're so used to translating now that we just kind of like scan the book and we just start translating. But it's so much beautiful when you can already don't have to double work your brain, and you can just have that writing, and you can say oh, now we can I just have to I don't have to think about it. It's already there, and it's so beautiful to see that. And we do go through these things where we are often seen as maybe because we're, like you said it beautifully, that we may be too we might just blend in, that they might be not thinking that we're different. So it's always a mystery for them, or a surprise when you go to the Mexican or Latino restaurants and you start speaking to them in Spanish, and they're like, "Whoa, I thought you were
how do you know Spanish?"
Oh, you speak really good Spanish, right? So it's always nice. I mean, to just do that, to surprise them. But alhamdulillah, like you said, we definitely because we blend in, it's nice that we can be having that ability to educate our communities, because we can also we can educate the non-Latino Muslims to get to know about our culture, and then we also get to educate our Latino community to know about Islam. And so we're able to do that by double dipping. And I just wanted to touch on why do you think that there is that lack of Latino writing? And I just wanted to say that I think because also there were less Latinos back then, like in your time. Now there's more in this time, but like you said, back in the 2000s, there was like no books out there. At least for me, when I Googled Spanish Muslim children's book, your name came by, right? So there's like, we're like going from 0 books to upcoming like more books, inshallah. That's why we need more writers, we need more doctors, we need more people in the white collar jobs that are Latinos, so we can be more represented. So I think that definitely has to play a part as why there was less Latino writers back then. Is there anything that you wanted to say on this too?
Yeah, there was a wave of conversions that happened right before or during or right after September 11th, 2001, right? And I call them the Gen X and Gen Y, or millennial Latino Muslims. And I'm one of them, right? Those of us that have been Muslim for 15 plus years, and and it was a wave, right? A wave of conversions. And I think what occurred, a lot of us were in our either teens or early 20s. And so we weren't really concerned with Islamic books for children at that point, right? We wanted to learn the deen ourselves.
True.
And then what happened is once we started growing up and having starting our families, having our own children, then I think that's when the realization occurred. And some of us, we married into Arab families or English-speaking, immigrant families. So some of us, I don't want to say we lost our culture or anything like that, but it's more like we kind of just assimilated and said, well, I have these books in English. My child is, bilingual or trilingual. I don't really need, right? Or maybe at that time I didn't feel the need for it.
Right.
But alhamdulillah, I'm seeing another wave of these new, mashallah, like converts, new Muslims that are Latino, and very proudly so. And I think they're in that same boat that I was when I was, in my mid-20s and I had my first child, that they see the need for that. And I want to kind of shout out some people, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because there is this growing representation now, and it's steady. It's small, but it's going there, right? Inshallah, and we want it to take off. First, I want to shout out, and this is one of my fellow Gen Xers, Juan Galvan, because he put together the Latino Muslims, Our Journeys to Islam book. And it's a very important book, and it's also available in Spanish and Portuguese. And it's just a collection of conversion stories from a lot of those Gen X and millennial Latino Muslims. So it's a very important book to have. And then now, recently, he also published Alianza Islámica, Spanish Harlem's Islamic Odyssey, which tells the story about Alianza Islámica, who was the first to establish a masjid in New York that was Latino, a Latino masjid in New York. Back in 1985 was when the masjid was established, but they were already an organization even before that. So it's important for us to know our history, and it'll inspire us to work hard on what we're doing now. And this just has some articles and interviews of the Alianza Islámica founders, and it talks about what they did. And then moving on to the children's books, I want to shout out Daniela Ortiz, who is an author, and she also has written some books with Latino Muslim families in mind. And I did a review on Sarah Musa, who also wrote the book called My Garden Over Gaza, and she is half Palestinian, half Latina. And a lot of people don't know that. And she has this book called Haifa Fixes Her Lie, and it's bilingual, English and Spanish. And then Jacqueline Christine wrote Mommy's Day Off, and she is a fellow Latina Muslim. And this book is in English, and I think she may have the Spanish version. And if she doesn't, she got to call me, and I'll help her with that. So there are definitely others. And then you, mashallah, coming up
Wendy,
with a book as well.
I'm getting
So
goosebumps because everyone like that you mentioned, it's like it's a revolution, it's coming, it's we're gonna be seeing more, and the people watching too, like if they're getting inspired and wanting to write their book, go ahead and do it, because like, or wanting to get that degree and being the first one, because we're definitely making, you guys are definitely the pioneers in making way for us to be more represented. So alhamdulillah. And I also wanted to touch up on like what is the solution? What are we doing to go ahead and make that more accessible? So like for right now, the globalization is big. Technology, we've been having it, and it's such a blessing that we are able to have it when we use it in the right way. Like right now, I've learned so much. Alhamdulillah, I've studied Islam, but I also learn a lot every day from just like going on the Instagram and connecting with other Instagrammers or TikTokers. They provide beautiful like material or educational in like a nice way now with reels and stuff like that. So that is like a thing that everyone, the solution is like more people are getting to know about Islam because of the accessibility that we have with our phones now. You get to learn about different cultures, and more, you have a lot of beautiful online friends now that you can talk to and get to know more about them, and like more, and ask them. It's not that shy, you're not that shy anymore to go ahead and ask, like for example, an imam like about Islam. You can also first reach out to your community and say like, hey, can you let me know a little bit of Islam? And then thankfully a lot of people online, they're very friendly and you can reach out to them. Also, a thing that now we can do is just like a travel has become more accessible. So now you can go ahead, and if you're wondering about Islam, you can just like, if you have the means and if Allah permits it too, you can go ahead and go to a Muslim country and experience it yourself, and it's more accessible nowadays to do that. And that's how I was able to learn about Islam for myself. It was the trips that made it like for me to get to know about Islam. Prior to that, I had like no Muslim friends, no connections, that I didn't have anything like that I can base off of myself to learn about Islam. So it took we have a party that girls celebrate. I don't know if they celebrated in Puerto Rico, but you tell me, Wendy, do you guys do quinceañeras in Puerto Rico? You do? So yes, so for those people that may not know about like what is a quinceañera, it's like when a girl turns into a woman, and that's when she's 15. So my sister, she didn't want a quinceañera, and we booked a trip for us to go celebrate with her in the Middle East, and we went to the UAE, and that's where I was able to get more curious about Islam, because when I was in the country, I was just like, wow, so mind blown that like all these like stigmas and like misconceptions about Islam were not there. And I really loved it. And that trip was able for me as an opportunity to get curious and start learning about Islam. And then in the future, I embraced it. So mashallah, like now with the globalization, it definitely is a way for us um, to be able to learn more about Islam. Also, like you mentioned too, like I saw the lack of like how to pray, how to do my hijab. I used to struggle, but it would be nice if there were materials and educational um, materials for us to get to know about, like, oh, how do you do wudu in Spanish. And it's always nice to see it, like, yes, we know how to speak English, but it's always nice to see materials in your own maternal language. It's always a good thing.
Mhm.
But I also wanted to talk about how here I wanted to just tell you guys a little bit about my book. Um, it's called Tu Puedes. It's a bilingual book. So Tu Puedes means you can do it. And it's super nice because it's a motivational children's book for little ones that they can dream and into becoming whoever they want. But obviously, like with the power of like they have to work hard, be determined, and also it talks about this little girl that doesn't know what she wants to do when she grows up, but with her mom's words that she keeps telling her, "Tú puedes, you can do it, you can do it," then that helps her to be able to become the person that she is, that who she plans to become, because later she decides what she wants to do. And so I really hope that everyone would like enjoy it. It touches on the Mexican culture, so I have illustrations, beautiful illustrations in there with like a little girl and a taco stand and a piñata and the Oaxacan mole. So it's just very colorful, and I can't wait for all of you guys to read it. And now passing the mic back to you, Wendy. Do you think that there's any solution, or would you like to talk about what you're doing to increase the representation of Latinos in Muslim writing? I know you touched upon already like some of the things that you were doing, but anything that you want to add on this?
I would love to just let everybody know that we all have valuable stories to tell, and if you want to do it, just write it. And another thing to keep in mind is that for children's books, there are different stages, right? You have picture books that are for the smaller children, and then you have early readers for when they're in preschool, and then you have chapter books, right? You have some of the smaller chapter books, and then you have bigger chapter books, and you go into middle grade, and then you go into young adult YA literature. So there are different categories, and we need books for all of those, because you may have a small child and you think, oh, all I need is picture books. But then when that child grows, they may want to read on their own, so you want to provide them something from there. So there's still a lot to be done when it comes to Islamic literature for the Latino community, in Spanish, bilingual, or just with Latino Muslim representation. I mean, I had bombillas going off when you were telling the story about the quinceañera. I haven't seen an Islamic book about a quinceañera. Why
That's
can't we
right.
have that,
Right.
right? Why can't we have that, so that we can explain to our children what it is when we may have non-Muslim relatives who are celebrating their quinceañera, and my kids may ask, well, what is that? And
Right.
so I have to explain that to them. What better way than to have a book that has those answers that we can refer back to, right? So there's so many things that you may not even think about, right? You're telling me this story about how your sister didn't want to away,
Right.
so you went to, UAE, right? You said
Yeah.
you can write a book that says, my quinceañera at, in the Emirates. And it can be an awesome book and something that nobody has ever seen.
Right.
And so I think we have to think outside the box when it comes to these children's books, and try to pull from our own experiences so that we can share that with our communities.
Definitely. Definitely. I love the way that you said like how it just takes an idea, it takes like a story. Everyone's life is different. We go through so many things on a daily basis, and if we can just tell our story in a book or something that like we can like more tangible, it would be nice, because we're spreading a message with our books into our community. So it's definitely really nice that we're able to do that, but it just takes an idea and it takes motivation just to go ahead and start writing. So definitely. But I loved being in this live with you talking. I've been having goosebumps throughout the whole session, because it's just definitely so for me, I love anything that has to do with motivation. So like it's been very motivational that we like hearing about the authors, hearing about your story, hearing about the like how you went from like having no Spanish books and then being able to write these books for your children. And like you said, our children are not only going to stay little for this long, and it just motivates me too to be like, you're right, like we have to keep pushing other people and pushing ourselves to be able to provide that educational material resources for our people, for our children, for other people that will be able to also get to learn about who we are too. So, alhamdulillah. Any closing remarks? Do you want to say anything else, Wendy?
Just that, just going off on that, definitely, be motivated and see what activism looks like in literature, right? Because we've seen, alhamdulillah, a wave of also like an increase in African American representation, right, in books. And we see how powerful that is to be able to see, for example, books about textured hair and how important that is to a child growing up. So we have to see these things as revolutionary, really. We would think, oh, it's just a children's book, it's not going to make a difference. But how many times have we picked something up that we read and it's impacted us and it stayed with us from childhood until well into adulthood, right?
Right.
So we definitely have to think about that. And anyone who's out there who has questions about getting started or what they can do, they can always send me a message. And I'm here. And if anybody wants their book translated into Spanish, I can do that as well. The more the merrier. And also I want to really motivate our fellow Latino Muslims, because I have seen others who are also interested in having books with Latino characters and things like that. And it's wonderful, right? That maybe someone that's not Latino writes in a Latino Muslim character, but it will never be as authentic as when we are writing about our experience, right? I prefer myself that we tell our stories ourselves and that somebody's not telling our stories for us, right? If we don't speak for ourselves, then someone else is going to do it for us. So if we really want to put that authenticity into children's books about Latino Muslims, or about Latin Americans, then we have to really contribute as well. So don't
Yes.
sleep on it.
No.
Don't
I
sleep
love
on it.
I love that, because I think when you said that, it made me think about when we watch a YouTube video on how to cook, for example, like empanadas, right? Like I trust someone that is not like Puerto Rican, or like if they're not Latino, in would I trust them if they're making the video? I would rather have someone that is, it's just me, like you said, like that is from that culture, that is making those empanadas for me and showing me how to cook them. So same thing with the books. We would really love to see those people that have experienced the in their lives, that with that background, to tell us their story. So definitely I agree on that. So mashallah. So I think that would be it for the our live. I really liked talking to you in this way. Once, at least, like I've never had met you, so one day I'm going to ask you if you come to Chicago to autograph me this book for my daughter.
I'll be in
And
Chicago, inshallah, in the fall. So I was just there a few months ago.
I know,
So
and I wasn't able to
had I
come.
known.
I wasn't able to come because I had the baby, so I was just like, I I really wanted to come. I always want to go to Chicago to with the Al Halal Foundation, and I know you're very close to them too. So inshallah, we will meet today. Oh, not today. We will meet one day personally. But thank you again, and then for everyone else that was watching, thank you for joining us. Like Wendy Diaz said, if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Both of us, I'm pretty open to like help around if you need any help, or if you have any questions. Follow us on Instagram to follow our more what we do, our upcoming projects and everything else. It was so nice, and you're very lovely to have come with me and done this live and eat something after this. So I know I'll
Cafecito, cafecito.
un cafecito, yo un té con un panecito. So thank you, everyone. And Assalamu-Alaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum salam. Let's see.